Alright, what is up everyone? It is Monday of my first week of my OBGYN rotation. So last week I finished up peds. I didn't really vlog it because it was a short week because I had my exam and my OSCE and I was just in like an outpatient clinic, so didn't have too much stuff going on. But I did go home last weekend just to visit family. It's always easy to go home right after an exam just because I don't really have to worry too much about studying. But now I am in my last clerkship of my core rotations. It's just so crazy to be 6 weeks away from being done with core rotations and then moving into board studying. And we are starting off with a tough week in my clerkship because I'm on nights this week. So that's going to be an interesting adventure to swap my sleep schedule for a few days. Today though is just going to be an orientation, so I have to drive actually up to the school to do an orientation with the clerkship director. Then we have like 3 lectures, just like a lot of introductory stuff to like gynecology, obstetrics, and then labor and delivery. And then we have a little break, and then in the afternoon we do some skills stuff. So we get to sort of relearn, do a refresher on how to do a breast exam, pelvic exam, and then we actually have like this high-tech mannequin dummy thing that simulates a birth. So we get to walk through a simulated birth with our clerkship director. So should be an exciting day. Alright, well the lighting absolutely sucks right now because it is 11:30 at night, so I'll try to make this quick. But I just got back from my ED shift, like I said, 11:30 p.m. Today was a little bit weird. I still had to get to the hospital at 6:45 in the morning for an orientation for OBGYN. That went from 6:45 until about 10:30. And then since I'm on nights this week, I got to go home. All the other people who were on like labor and delivery or on different clinics, they just like started working with their team. But yeah, so I went home around 10:30, had lunch, did a little bit of studying, and went to the gym. Then I had to go back to the hospital at 4 o'clock for an ED shift. So even though I'm on nights this week, during our nights week, we do a ED shift. It was 4 p.m. to midnight, so got out a little bit early, thankfully. I was in a different part of the ED this time. It was called our fast track, which is sort of a lower acuity, like in between an urgent care and an ED. So patients who are a little bit more stable or healthy will go there. It was actually my first time being there. In like all of my ED shifts, I normally go to the main one. So that was interesting. This is also my first time seeing adult patients in like a month and a half. So that was a bit of an adjustment. I had a whole week of ED on peds, but that was kids. So they have, a lot of different pathology to think about than adults do. So that was nice having to sort of rethink about what the important things are for our adult population. It was insanely busy though, for some reason. It was just a Tuesday night, but yeah, I probably saw like 25-30 patients with the doctor. She was very nice. We had help from a PA for about half the shift, but then she left around like 8. So the end of the shift was just us, but it was good. So I just got home, and my plan is to try to stay up as late as I possibly can, just because my next 2 days are like overnight shifts, like real overnight shifts. So yeah, I mean, I have been on my normal sleep schedule, so I'm gonna try to adjust to being a little bit more nocturnal. So I'm just going to try to stay up as late as I can and then go to sleep and just wake up probably when the sun wakes me up. So I'm not expecting to get very good sleep at all, but that's just kind of what you have to do when you transition to night shifts. Alright, what is up? It is Thursday morning. Last time I checked in was after my ED shift, which was Tuesday night. Got home at late but reasonable time, around like midnight. I tried to stay up as late as I could to start to adjust to like actual overnight shifts, but I only stayed up till like 2, and then I went to bed and kind of woke up around my normal time, which wasn't great. I woke up at like 10, and then just like studied a lot during the day, and then went to my first night shift, which was like last night into this morning. I got there around 5:30, which is earlier than most of the night shifts. Usually we get there at like 10, but since it was our first night, we wanted to go for sign out just to see like how that process is, and it's like sort of an easier opportunity to meet the residents. Sat there for sign out, which took like 45 minutes to an hour, and then went to the floor. We got a little bit of a tour from the residents because, you know, it is our first week. That's really our first time being on the L&D floor. So they showed us like where we sit, what we do with the fetal heart tracings, all that kind of stuff. So basically when we got there, we looked at the list of all of the patients who were in labor. And then we kind of just went around to everyone and introduced ourselves, asked if it was okay if we helped out with the delivery and all that stuff. There were a few patients who said no, but most of them said yes, so that was great. And then after that, we just kind of hung out and sat at our desk and studied while watching the fetal heart tracings. So the reason for that is it is a good monitor of how the baby and the mom are doing. So, you know, it shows the contractions that mom is having, and also shows like how the fetal heart rate is reacting to that. If it's, you know, the appropriate rate, if it's changing at all, sort of the variability of the heart rate, all of that are, you know, very important and predictors of the baby is doing well. If we have to change anything, the fetal heart tracing goes really bad, we might have to take the mom for a stat C-section. Thankfully, none of that happened. But that's sort of the most important job for the students, is to just like be the eyes and ears of the residents and make sure that the babies are doing okay. The other things that we did last night was something called a mag check or magnesium check. So we had a few patients who were admitted for preeclampsia, which is sort of a scary condition that happens in pregnancy where you get hypertension, and if it, you know, progresses really far, you can get liver damage and coagulopathy and then even seizures. So the main treatment for preeclampsia, eclampsia, is magnesium. So one of the main things that you have to do is, if a patient is admitted and on magnesium, you have to check up on them periodically, see how they're doing, you know, checking for the different side effects of magnesium. So we had a few patients that like every 4 hours we would go and do a mag check on, and then sort of report that to the residents. So yeah, between that and doing the fetal heart tracings, other than that, we just kind of waited for deliveries. It was a very slow night, and we didn't have a delivery until like 5 in the morning. So I was able to see one last night right before I left, so that was great. But you know, from 5:30 p.m. to 5 a.m., it was very slow. Tried to sleep as much as I could, but my body just isn't really adjusted to it. I woke up at like 9:30, so I really didn't get much sleep. So I'm up. I got some coffee in me, did a little bit of studying, and I'm gonna head to the gym. And then actually today at 2 o'clock, there is an orthopedic symposium, the network. So I'm gonna try to go to that just because I have the time to. And tonight my shift doesn't start till 10 p.m. So I'm basically gonna go there at 2. The event lasts until 9. So then I'm just gonna probably stay at the hospital and then just go straight to my night shift. All right, so it is Friday afternoon, and I'm finally starting to recover from my second night shift. So I guess I'll start back to yesterday. I don't know, all my days of the week are so messed up because I've been on nights. So as I mentioned last time, I checked in yesterday, Thursday, from like 2-ish to 9 p.m. There was a orthopedic symposium at the hospital right near me. So I ended up going to that just because I knew a lot of the residents were going to be there. And and some of the faculty were going to be speaking. It's been a while since I've, gone to any sort of orthopedic conference or lectures or anything like that. So it ended up being a really cool event. So the way it worked was there were 4 sort of different subspecialty sessions, and then there was 2 doctors in each of the sessions, one sort of from the north region of our network and one from the south. So the 4 different specialties they started with spine, then they did shoulder, elbow, then there was like a little bit of a break just to get some snacks and refreshments, and then there was adult reconstructive, which is like hip and knee replacements, and then they finish with trauma. The general structure of those sessions was they would pick a topic and then sort of do point counterpoint, to where one of the doctors would say that this is how they would handle a certain injury or condition, and then the other one would sort of counter that and give their opinion. The spine topic was robotic versus open surgery. Shoulder one was whether you should repair rotator cuff tears in elderly patients. The adult reconstructive one, they were talking about a few different techniques of how to do knee replacements. And then finally, trauma one, whether you should try to fix a distal femur fracture or just replace the joint. Even though they were supposed to do it like debate style, where, one side is in favor of one, technique or whatever, and then the other was in favor of the other, they would always sort of have a middle ground discussion of there's never one right answer, which is just kind of how medicine is. If there was only one way of doing something and that was always the perfect way, then there wouldn't really be debates. But it was still nice to hear different opinions on how to treat all these different kinds of conditions and what you need to take into account when making these decisions. So yeah, went to that and then went pretty much straight from that to my night shift, which started at 10 p.m. last night and then went until like 5:30 a.m. this morning. So in terms of the night shift, it was very similar to the first one. It was actually a lot slower than the other night. We didn't get any new patients. We just kind of monitored all the patients that were already there. I went to one delivery, which was so fast, and then just kind of checked up on patients. We had a few patients who were there, like admitted for preeclampsia after they had given birth, so had to do, magnesium checks on them. And then that's pretty much it. Got home at like 6 this morning and slept until noon. So now I'm just waking up and starting today. It's going to be interesting to see how I readjust to my normal circadian rhythm. Thankfully, I only had 2 night shifts, so I shouldn't have that much issue readjusting. It's not like I was doing this for like a whole week or a whole month. And then it's also nice that it's the weekend, so that should help in terms of adjusting back to a regular schedule. This upcoming week is going to be our subspecialty clinic week. So pretty much every day is a different subspecialty, so it's going to be interesting. And it's kind of nice because it is a bit of a lighter schedule, because for some of the subspecialty days, we only have a half day because like me and one other student have the same exact schedule for this clerkship. So like I will go to this clinic in the morning and then he'll go in the afternoon. So it should be a pretty chill week and I'll be able to catch up on some studying.